Adventurous kids explore with education and learning what a wildlife is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovering Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West. Adventurous kids, learning and fun. Adventurous kids!
Today I'm going to tell you about the U.S. Census. The U.S. Census counts every person living in the United States and 5 U.S. territories: Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the Commonwealth of the North Mariana Islands, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The United States was the first country in the world to make a census a mandatory part of its Constitution. Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution mandates that the country conduct a count of its population once every 10 years. The 2020 census will mark the 24th time that the country has counted its population since 1790. The U.S. Census is conducted by the United States Census Bureau, which is an agency of the U.S. Federal Statistical System, responsible for producing data about the American people and economy. The Census Bureau is part of the United States Department of Commerce and is director appointed by the President of the United States. The census is the U.S. government's largest peacetime operation. The census provides critical data that lawmakers, business owners, teachers, and many others use to provide daily services, products, and support for you and your community. Every year, billions of dollars in federal funding go to hospitals, fire departments, schools, roads, and other resources based on census data that will impact communities for the next decade. The results of the U.S. Census also determines the number of seats each state will have in the U.S. House of Representatives, and they are used to draw congressional and state legislative districts. Each home will receive an invitation to respond to a short questionnaire, online, by phone, or by mail by April 1st of the first year of the decade, 2010, 2020, 2030, etc., which is Census Day. Responding online is not an option at this time for the following groups: people living in Puerto Rico, people living in group housing, and people living in homes where the Census Bureau has an incomplete mailing address. If you do not respond, the U.S. Census Bureau will follow up in person to collect your response. The U.S. Census Bureau is providing multiple ways to respond. Over 99% of the nation's households speak English or one of these 12 languages: Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Japanese. The U.S. Census Bureau estimates that completing the questionnaire will take 10 minutes on average. You should count yourself at the place where you are living and sleeping most of the time. This includes everyone, related or unrelated to you, who lives and sleeps at your home most of the time. Please be sure to count roommates, young children, newborns, and anyone who is renting a space in your home. If someone is staying in your home on April 1st and has no usual home elsewhere, you should count them in your response to the U.S. Census. Participating in the census is required by law. The Census Bureau is also required by law to protect your answers. Your responses are used only to produce statistics. The Census Bureau does not disclose any personal information. By U.S. Census law, refusal to answer all or part of the U.S. Census carries a $100 fine. The penalty goes up to $500 for giving false answers. In 1976, Congress eliminated both the possibility of a 60-day prison sentence for non-compliance and a 1-year prison term to false answers. The fine could significantly higher than $100 for purposely avoiding questions. census. The Sentencing Reform Act of 1984 effectively raised the penalty to as much as $5,000 for refusing to answer a census question. A census spokeswoman said, "We view this approach as a last resort." U.S. Census records are stored at the Census Bureau's Processing Center in Jeffersonville, Indiana. By law, U.S. Census records cannot be released to the public for a period of 72 years after the census has been completed. After 72 years, the records are transferred to NARA, which makes them available to the public. Thus, the 1948 U.S. Census will be released to the public on April 2, 2020. A major problem with a traditional once-in-a-decade census is that it is out of date the day after the census is taken, as people are born, pass away, and move every day. In the first census in 1970, the population of the United States was 3,929,214. In the 2010 census, the population of the United States was counted as 308,745,538, a 9.7 increase from the 2000 census, which was 281,421,906. Do you wonder what the U.S. population will be in 2020? Thanks for watching this episode of Adventurous Kids.
What did you learn today?
Adventurous Kids.
Adventurous Kids.
What was the most interesting fact?
Adventurous Kids.
Adventurous Kids.
Adventurous Kids.